I will just give it about 1 minute to 2 minutes for the system to sink in with the Facebook, and then I'll start the process. I'll start the session. Okay, ma'am. And we are starting. In the words of Maya Angelou, we may encounter many defeats, but we must not be defeated. Good morning. On behalf of Vatel Hotel and Tourism Business School, I, Sunil Kumar, Assistant Professor, would like to welcome you all to our second leg of the motivational series titled Setbacks to Comebacks. The times are tough, and even though the sky looks dark and gloomy, we know that the sun will shine again upon all of us. Staying motivated during these times is important not only for us but for also the ones around us. Even if we're able to inspire one person around us, we should consider our mission as success. During this series, we should be introducing such personalities who have not just inspired one but countless number of people by sharing what they've experienced. By letting each person know that winter always turns to spring. Our speaker for the day, Dr. Shivani Gupta, founder Accessibility, is a positive soul who always inspires anyone she touches, a hero for millions of lives around us, a hero who has been through numerous struggles in life and has always found a way to win. Her journey reciprocates in the quote by F. Scott, show me a hero and I'll write you a tragedy. We welcome you, ma'am. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Sunil. It's really my pleasure to be here, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, ma'am. So let me introduce Dr. Shivani to you. Dr. Shivani Gupta, founder Accessibility, following the completion of her MSc in Exclusive Environments, Design and Management from the University of Reading, UK, participating in a training of trainers program on non-handicapping environments for persons with disabilities and the elderly, organized by the UN ESCAP headquarters in Thailand in the year 2000, was a life-altering moment for her. It changed her perspective towards disability from the medical approach that for inclusion requires the disabled person to be fixed, to a social approach where the society needs to become more accessible and inclusive to enable persons with disabilities to participate on an equal basis. She realized that the accessibility and participation of disabled people was directly proportionate and recognized promotion of accessibility as her mission. Following this understanding, she made herself more knowledgeable about the subject by studying further and getting a diploma in architecture technology in 2004 and a master's degree in the subject before starting accessibility. She is now a name to reckon with. Apart from her work at the national level, Shivani has worked on international projects as a consultant with the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, the International Disability Alliance, and CBM International. She has also co-authored publications pertaining to improving accessibility in physical environments, public procurement, assistive devices, support devices, and so on. Ma'am, we welcome you once again. We are honored to have you here, and the stage is all yours.
Thanks again, Sunil, for that great introduction. And good morning, everyone. It's really my pleasure to be here. And I have to say, I'm a bit nervous today, a little more than usual, because talking about oneself is actually not easy, and that's something that I realized when today, when I'm going to be doing that. So, Sunil, can I request you to, what I've done is I have prepared some slides which Sunil is going to share and help me with those slides. These slides basically have some, photographs of my life just to create some kind of, mental links. And I'm just going to be basically my topic for today is limits exist only in the mind. In my talk, I will elaborate on the limitations and share with you my learnings over the 3 decades living with the limitations that I have. So, Sunil, you can go on to the next slide, perhaps.
Sure.
So, 30 years ago, I passed out from the Institute of Hotel Management, Pusa. I was a senior, 1 year senior to Garima, the dean of this institute, and also a fellow hostler. And if my memory serves me right, I think we were perhaps even roommates at one point of time. I think being at IHM Pusa were perhaps the best days of my life, the most carefree, without any limits or a care, in terms of what the future will be. And I used to work at the Moria Sheraton. Uh, Soon after graduating from IHM Pusa, I took up a job at the Moria Sheraton. I worked there for 10 months and I quit it on a very simple, reason that I did not really enjoy doing what I was doing. I had no idea what I wanted to do, but it was easy for me to quit. Sunil, you can go on to the next slide. So basically, that's me in that purple, oh, yeah, purple sari. And those are my batchmates. It's one of those very typical photographs when you're passing out. You have the passing out event, and when you're all dressed up in these formal dresses. So I had a job leaving party that ended up in an accident, and I had a spinal injury. Uh, Sunil, if you can go on to the next slide, which made me paralyzed neck downwards in a split second, and I became a disabled person for the rest of my life. I was now dependent even for basic needs, basic activities like dressing, bathing, toileting, feeding. And while these pictures are very happy pictures, but it was like I was in the hospital for nearly 6 months. Rigorous physiotherapy. In those days, there wasn't very good, physiotherapies or rehabilitation services. So a lot of self-learning and learning to do things for oneself. It was like being a child again. And, you know, it was like being disabled. Uh, One needed to overcome the self-consciousness, of stepping out of the house into the real world on a wheelchair now, which someone else would be pushing for you. This changed self-image and the nervousness of how the world will view me now was not easy. So, especially now, I was completely dependent. I needed a carer to be with me, who would support me in all activities 24 hours. And so I was like, my identity seemed to be, split, where inside I felt like the same person, but my external image was now, and how everyone now was looking at me had completely changed. And this dichotomy resulted in changing my own relationships with family and friends resulted in rejections, self doubt, sense of not being good enough, lack of confidence, and so on. So at that moment, I think I had two choices, either to give up and just say, well, this is what I am and I can't do anything anymore. And I have to live, a life where I am dependent on others. I lead a life where other people take decisions for me. And, a very passive life. But, the thought, when I think back, it shudders. I mean, I absolutely can't imagine had I decided to, take this decision to be dependent and not challenge this situation. I don't know what would have happened of me. So there were clearly two choices, either challenge the situation or do something about it. And at that moment, I'm really happy that I decided to do something about it. If we can go to the next slide. So just taking, little baby steps and finding joy in little things like minor and insignificant accomplishment, like getting a little packet of, say, chips from the colony corner shop was a big thing for me because that meant I had overcome my inhibition of my self-image being a disabled person. I had overcome, you know, the anxiety of what people would think of me when they see me like that. And painting was one of my new activities that I took up during those early days of my rehabilitation. And painting was therapeutic not only for my hands, but it also brought some color into my life. It also gave me a sense of, you know, sense of purpose. With a lot of practice and endless discarded artworks, I held some exhibition during those days. And in those days, I think Shivani's delicate watercolor cards were the talk of Delhi. And they were like available. I used to go out to different fairs and, pay to sell my hand painted cards. I mean, it was not something I could have ever thought I would do, but it was very, very enriching. I met a lot of very, very lovely people when I was out there. I gained confidence, and even more, it gave me some, money which I could at least spend to buy my art material during those days. Because again, I was completely dependent, not only physically but economically, emotionally, every way. I was completely dependent, and this gave me some sense of economic independence. So if we can go to the next slide. So I have to say that, there is nothing in life that has come easy to me. And I don't think anything comes easy to anyone. And I particularly had to work really hard to get everything. And I did get a lot, I have to say. I worked at the Indian Spinal Injury Center for nearly 6 years. I was working as a peer counselor there, counseling other women with spinal cord injuries in how to cope with a spinal injury. Uh, and I left my job after 6 years to join a course in architecture technology. I was 32 then, and I was going to be joining this architecture technology course where my fellow mates were going to be 18 straight out of college. So it was really, you know, strange and a bold decision. and especially because my hands are, disabled, and I can't really do all those architectural drawings or make models, architectural models so easily. So there was a bit of a resistance, that why would I want to do that, leaving my very comfortable, established job at Indian Spinal Injury Center. But, I just needed a change. I needed to move on. What next? And that followed with my going to the United Kingdom for a post graduation in inclusive environments, and which is now the area of my expertise. And I have to say that going to United Kingdom for a post graduation was not easy for a class person like me, because the cost of tuition, the living costs, and your living costs meant for two people, because for me and my carer. So it was not easy, but it was just, very, very bull-headed kind of determination that no, I have to do this and I will do this, and which made things turn in my favor. And I did manage to go to the United Kingdom. I was there for nearly 1.5 years doing my post graduation. And I am very happy to report that I was one of the toppers in my architecture technology class, and I, uh, you know, graduated with a merit in at the Reading University. So those were great achievements for me, and it gave me a direction of what now. So you can imagine, I became disabled at the age of 22. I got real direction in my life only after, several years. I realized what is it that I really want to do in life. It's not that I knew instantly that, well, this is what I'm good at and this is what I'm interested. So I think it's like one needs to be open to try out different things, to take bold kind of steps and decisions in life. So if you, so these are just photographs of. I received several awards and accolades during this period, during this journey, and my favorite was really the Nija Bhanot Award, which I received, which is given to a woman achiever once a year, and also the National Role Model Award, which is given out by the President of India, and at that time it was President Abdul Kalam. So it made the award even more special. So yeah, so there was a lot of recognition, and I think when you are doing and struggling and really pushing to be on your path, there are people who recognize your work, who support you and encourage you to move forward. So now this sounds like a good enough ending for someone's journey, and what I have to share about the limitations being my disability, and how the society used disability and how that impacted my own life, and how I was able to overcome it. But no, now I'll share actually the second phase of my life, which is more difficult for me to share. And if we can go to the next slide. So while I was working at the Indian Spinal Injury Center, I met Vikas, a colleague, a friend, a confidant, and we were young at that time. And as all young couples, we were crazy. We liked to party every day. It was our thing to go out to the TGIF, which was very newly opened during that time. There was only one TGIF in Vasant, Bihar, every Tuesday. And I remember meeting Garima a couple of times at TGIF during those days. We traveled a lot to the mountains and with other friends. We also traveled together to Europe. Uh, and here I'd just like to mention, I mean, the thing is, I am a person with a severe disability. And yet here there was this young man who who liked me and was in love with me because of the person I was. He did not really see my disability, and I think he was the only person I know who's, the way he talked to me or the way he treated me was not tainted by my disability. I mean, I remember him being so demanding when we had parties and things like that, that I felt sometimes that no, I can't do it. But I did, and it helped me push my own limits. And I'd like to especially like narrate one incident when we'd gone to Paris. I mean, like young children, we wanted to visit uh, the Eiffel Tower in the first instance. And, there were these stairs from the metro. We took the metro from the airport, took a metro to the Eiffel Tower. And there were these steps to get out of that metro station. And there was no other, elevator or a ramp or anything. So obviously, because I was on a wheelchair, there was no way I could exit. So now what were we to do? And the thing is, everyone would speak in French, and we didn't know French. And I remember Vikas actually pulling me up on my wheelchair, up nearly 12 or 15 steps, a flight of steps. And it was a very, very reckless thing to do because I could have slipped, and it was a strange country, and what if we had both fallen and got hurt? But he did. And there weren't too many people who came forward to really help us. And I think had we been in India, there would have been more people. But still, it's like you realize that everything is not perfect in the West. And it's like, okay, things are much easier, but definitely not perfect. As a lot of times we think maybe life abroad may be much easier and much more uh, easier and comfortable, but not necessarily. So, but it was this sheer, again, um, I don't know where he got that strength from that day to pull me up those 15 steps. But it was one of those experiences one would never forget in life. Uh, then he was the one who actually inspired me to, go for the post graduation in United Kingdom. And Vikas had already, was already working in the United Kingdom by this time. He had quit the Indian Spinal Injury Center and was already working there. So once I went there, we were both batchmates, and we did post graduation in inclusive environments together because inclusive environments was a passion for both of us. And we both felt so strongly about the need for a more inclusive infrastructure to enable persons with disabilities to, participate more easily. So if we can go to the next slide. So once I returned from the UK, we started a consultancy, Accessibility, and I started it with Vikas and another friend, Sachin, and we had people who were also working with us. And accessibility was the first and the premier consultancy providing assistance to corporates and other organizations in, enabling them to become more inclusive to employ persons with disability to accept them as clients and guests. And coincidentally, uh, ITC, the ITC Hotel Division, was our first client, and it's it was like coming full circle because when I became disabled, I went back to Morias to see if I could get a job, because I needed to do something, and it wasn't possible because obviously I was disabled, and in those days, hiring persons with disabilities was not something accepted. And how would things work out? So they were absolutely not for it. And now, after these, say, 20 years or even less, we were consultants to them. And as a consultant, I traveled to each and every property of the ITC hotels and audited them for accessibility, provided them inputs on how they can improve their infrastructure so that it can be more inclusive and comfortable for guests with disabilities. And apart from the ITC hotels, we did provide consultancy to several other corporates and educational institutes, including the ISB in Bangalore. So, I mean, there was lots that was happening. And Vikas actually contributed to work from the United Kingdom itself because he was still working there. And after 1 year, he returned, thinking of looking at prospects of working in India and how accessibility can be developed, and maybe he doesn't need to go back and be settled here. And it was finally during this time, if you can change the slide, that we got married. So it was after 10 years of being together that we finally got married. We finally got an acceptance of the society to be together. And yeah, it was, I think, the most magical thing to happen to be married to my best friend. I mean, it was just more than a dream come true because I knew how the society looked at me. I was a disabled person, and you don't go out and marry a severely disabled person. But so therefore, it was really more than a dream come true. I never thought that we would ever get married. So, but we did. It was the most beautiful point of my life. But once again, you know, and being married and getting this acceptance once again gave me back my confidence that there is no limitation and that I could achieve anything that I want to. And there was nothing that could hold me back. And but frankly, we can only plan, but it's really God who disposes and decides for us what and what is going to happen and how our future is going to be molded. And it was 4 months after our marriage that we met with an accident. So this was my second accident. And Vikas lost his life in that accident. So we can go to the next slide. So it was for 10 months that I had a femur fracture myself, and I was bedridden for 10 months. Emotionally and mentally, I was broken. I didn't know what future meant, and why. First of all, I couldn't understand why should I have another accident of that gravity. Had I not learned enough from my first accident? Whatever there was. It's a microphone, yeah. So whatever there was to learn, had I not learned enough, and I couldn't make sense of it. And nothing, I mean, it's not that I thought that I should end my life or I didn't have those kind of feelings. But I just didn't understand why. I mean, why did we have to get married just 4 months before? There was no purpose. But the thing is, you don't see purpose unless you detach yourself from your life and take a more aerial view of what things are. And it was in those 10 months, it was a time of deep introspection and, trying to make sense of different things in my life. In the first accident, I was broken physically, but I think my second accident broke my soul. And it was more difficult. What do you do? How do you manage this? And it was during that time I wrote my book, No Looking Back, which was published by Rupa Publication. It is available online. And where I pen all these thoughts and things down and, just trying to make sense of of what life is. And I don't think I have an answer to what life is. And life doesn't stop, it just keeps flowing. And again, I had only two choices, either to succumb to my situation and say, okay, now this is how it is, and I am sorry, and I just cannot manage to go on any further. It is too difficult. I need people to support me, to take care of me. And the other choice was to accept and to carry on and to find new directions. And I think it's the second direction that I took. If we can change the slide. Again, I had no idea what is it that I need to do. How should I continue? Accessibility had now more or less dissolved. It was just me. So how do I continue? It was it was difficult. It was not impossible. And it is said when you are really seeking, something or seeking answers and directions, that the whole universe conspires to make it happen. And sure enough, there were opportunities that started coming my way, even while I was bedridden and, at the end of my healing. And the first opportunity was to develop a travel package for disabled persons in Ladakh. And I think there couldn't have been a more perfect project that I could begin with. And with a very, very, nearly healed leg, without my doctor's permission, without my family being very comfortable about my going to Ladakh, straight from the bed, I went to Ladakh. And it was, again, a very, very healing experience. People who've been to Ladakh know the way that environment and that nature really heals you. And it also was a time when, I was doing something, I could divert my mind to, different things and get some kind of rhythm and some kind of direction back into my life. And here you can see in this picture where there are three of us, the lady with her arms around me is Ritu. She is my carer who has been with me for nearly 20 years, you know. So now she's like my family and also my backbone. So I'm so glad I had her, and she's been the only person stable in my life for such a long time. And I'm so blessed that I still have her, and I can continue my journey. If we can go to the next slide. So following that, there was no looking back. In the next 9 years to come, we traveled to 22 countries, doing some work for persons with disabilities in all of these countries, whether it was working or presenting at the United Nations or doing a consultancy. If we can go to the next slide. These slides are from Switzerland, from the UN, the WHO, or presenting at different UN conferences, making rights of bringing to the table rights and requirements of persons with disabilities. If we can go to the next one. Or whether it is training. So this slide on the right is from no, the one in the left is was the first time after getting up and after going to Ladakh. The first trip I made was to Spain, and I was still so brokenhearted, and I still was finding it difficult to go on. I couldn't look into people's eyes. I always had my eyes down because I couldn't face people. But I went. I made a presentation of my work in Ladakh at a conference in Spain. And this one on the right is, you know, being a part and supporting in the participation of persons with disabilities at the Sendai conference, which was a UN World Conference on disaster risk reduction. And so that's a photograph from there. And we can go to the next slide. Is there a next slide? So these are, these are from, of course, we can all recognize that's from Cairo, and the one on the right is from Fiji, both places where I had gone to train persons with disabilities in inclusive environments, and I have done so in very many countries, including Pakistan, our neighbor. So, it's been a beautiful journey after the second setback. And I think what is important is, no, I think I'll go to the next slide first. Sorry. So, and this is my most recent accolade. This is where I received my PhD doctorate from the University of Maastricht. Now, because of COVID, I could not be there for my public defense, and therefore I had it online. I had an online defense. And so this is my latest accolade. And I got a PhD on the lives of persons with disabilities in rural India. And I think now my future work actually revolves more around bringing equality and voices of persons from the global south, especially from our rural areas, which are really unheard and unaddressed in different agendas. And I think my future journey is going to be very around those kind of areas. So there were a lot of achievement, and each day, I mean, after going through so much, after overcoming so much, challenge and pain seems just like a part of life. And for sure, it is guaranteed that each one of us is going to be facing pain, loss, frustration, a sense of entrapment, failures, and so on. This is just a part of life. And, I have been able to make friends with these because unless you don't make friends with them, you cannot learn from them. And these are the only opportunities that are given to you to grow as a person, to become a better human being, and to understand life much better. Had my life been all cushy, without any limitation, without any troubles, I wouldn't be here talking to all of you today. So it is because of these limitations, because of these, you know, challenges that I'm here, and you really want to know how I overcame these. And I think how I overcame these was to accept that yes, they are going to be there, but yet keep a determination that I am not going to get succumbed by them. They are not going to rule my life. I am going to be the ruler of my own life. So with that, I'm going to end, and I would really like some questions, comments, and thoughts from anyone. We can go to the next slide. Sorry. I've just left my mail ID and my website address. So if anyone wants to see something more about my work or contact me, so there it is.
Hi, Shivani.
Hi, Garima. How are you?
How are you? Firstly, I would like
I'm
to
very
really thank you for being on this platform. And
it's perfect. I'm so happy to be here.
it's so overwhelming to see you and to hear you. And I would just like to say that, we are blessed that you have touched our lives. It just gets me very emotional. Probably we think about you. I mean, I think about you every day. Whenever I would have a small obstacle also in my life, and I would think like, look at Shivani. And it's
Thanks.
not, and it's not like, I mean, people like us, so-called normal people, are the people with limits. People like you are never with limits. And, you're a complete person. You're just an absolutely complete person. And I wish people knew you more, and, and they could derive their strength from you.
Thanks, Garima.
I just want to thank you and all the students who are hearing from you. Maybe could understand the things that you have told them, because we have been a part of your journey, through Facebook or to know you. But I don't know, most of the people who have heard you have understood the intensity that how you have pulled yourself through. I've never known a more complete person than you. And thank you so very much.
Thanks so much, Garima. Thank you. Makes my life worthwhile that I can,
It is every bit worth, Shani. It is every bit worth. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's so difficult to talk about the second phase of my life, and I don't talk about it actually. And every time, even now, when I talk about it, I get emotional, which I should not. I have to learn, I have to be stronger. But yeah, sorry that I was emotional.
Yeah, I know we lived with that, when you were going through those operations, and then the news came on, Facebook, and the whole IHM Pusa group was attached, Nobody wanted to believe that it was happening. And I think so every soul prayed that it should not happen. But I don't know, I mean, why it happened. but and really have never been able to understand what makes you so strong and what are you made up of, if all of us could even take 5% of the strength that you have, I don't know where we could go. That's so. God bless you always. Happy.
Thank you. So I think if anyone has some questions, they can type in the chat box, I believe.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. They can. Please feel free to ask attendees who are here. Chat box is open, so if you have any question, please do ask.
Well, I don't want to leave at such a heavy note. Life is really beautiful. It's really worth living, and it's really worth fighting for each beautiful moment in your life. And the thing is that you have to make your life beautiful yourself. No one is going to do it for you. You have to be determined. You have to decide whether you're going to succumb to your challenges and live a miserable life, or you're going to stand up and face them and move on and, just be your own boss and not let life be your boss. So I think I don't want to leave at a heavy, feeling. And Vikas had his own journey. He had a purpose, his own purpose in his life, and that is what was destined and happened, and which is how life is. And there is nothing much that could have been done. But now I have a guardian, angel out there, and as I told you, the level of work that I'm doing now after my second accident is phenomenal as compared to the level of work I was doing earlier. And there is internal happiness. What is important is one doesn't get happiness from, accolades like Abdul Kalam's Award Miller or having loads of money and a big house. You don't get happiness from that. Happiness is from inside when you're content, and that's what I have. And it's all because I have a guardian angel. So it's a very good situation. Nothing to be feeling bad and sorry about.
I have a
Can't hear
question.
you.
I have a
Yeah.
question.
Ms. Ashna has shared something in the chat.
Need
So,
Chef, I have a question if I can ask.
yeah, please, Sir Chef, please.
When you're actually the work, then probably those not so good memories take a backseat for some point of time when you're actually involved in something that you love. What happens and how do you actually overcome those situations when these kind of memories triggers back when you're actually at home and resting? I'm sure.
I think, yeah. I think at those times, there are two things that help. I think one is to look at your own life and how you have reached where you are. I'm not saying I'm really like high up in the thing, but from where I start, I am really good, right? And what have been the obstacles that I have been able to overcome, and to really focus on those, to see the strength within, which we generally do not. And second is to understand that how blessed I am. I mean, you imagine there are people in far worse situations. You look at the COVID situation today, and you look at the people who are less privileged, going to the government hospital, struggling, and all those things. But whereas, a middle class person would go to a private hospital, perhaps better healthcare, or whatever. So I think count your blessings and don't undermine your achievements. Feel happy about them. Tell us about the Helen Keller Award. So Helen Keller Award is constituted by an organization called NCEPDT, and they give out the award. They have three categories of award. They give it to an individual, to a company, and to, I forget the third, to an NGO. So I think I got it under the individual category as being for my work in making corporates more inclusive and accessible to persons with disabilities. So that is what it was.
Do you have any questions? Any comments that you would like to share?
Comments have been coming in, Chef. We have got a comment from Ms. Asha Narayan. Shivani, the shine on your face right now and the spark in your eyes in your picture post accidents speaks of the indomitable spirit. Then we have got comment from certain more people in our event chat. Anuradha B has commented. He is happy to look at this thing. You're a great soul, Shivani Didi. The level of confidence and the real courage to face the world and the determination to overcome the obstacles are the greatest lesson to learn from you. Thanks for this wonderful session. You're going to reach greater heights. Rohan Sharma sir has got a similar kind of comment talking about the inspiration and fortunate that I met and worked with you. You're a true rock. And he's saying that we have got a long journey ahead. He's mentioning a point that it would be great if you could tell us about your forthcoming projects. So, Shivani ma'am, if you could just share, if you lighten us about the same also.
Yeah. So presently, I am. I always do several consultancies together because I get bored in doing just one and dealing with only one client. So presently, there are a couple of things that I'm doing, and one of the most significant and the most, something which I really like doing is that I'm working with an organization called International uh, Disability Innovation Hub, which is a UK-based organization. They are working with the Asian Development Bank, and their mandate is to train their staff Asia over, because ADB Bank operation is in Asia, to incorporate inclusion into their work. As you know, ADB gives funds for development programs, maybe a huge housing complex for the poor, maybe building a huge park in some country, or working towards making cities more livable. So they do these huge development projects in different countries in Asia. So now I'm supporting this organization in training of ADB staff to bring inclusion into their own work, and also to provide advice on their country projects. So that's one of the most interesting one that I'm doing right now. I am going to be starting to do research on these rural areas and support services that people with disabilities require. Like, for instance, I have Ritu, who is my backbone. So many disabled people require support, different kind of support, which is not available to them. As a result of which, they are not able to do things that they really want. So that's what my PhD was about. I'm going to continue research of my whatever PhD work, maybe do a postdoc, or if not possible, then still just continue the research. And I should have another published paper in the next coming couple of days. So that's something to look forward to. That's on assistive devices, basically wheelchairs, and the provision of wheelchairs in India, the government provision, and how they are provided and the lacunas and stuff like that in that. So that's what my very soon to be published research paper is going to be about.
We have Mr. M.S. Neelkandan. He was here as attendees in the group only.
So
So he has shared a chat.
Neelkandan sir, Neelkandan sir actually was a teacher at IHM Pusa and amazing personality. So yeah, what does he share? Shivani Gupta, if you can read it.
Yeah. So Shivani Gupta and Epidomus says, your attitude defines your altitude. The road not taken by Robert Frost. I am the master of my soul and the captain of my ship. Invictus. And then कर अपने आप को इतना बुलंद कि खुदा बेकार यह पूछे कि क्या है तेरी रजामंदी. So God will always ask you.
Yeah. And I think God keeps asking me when God puts such big challenges to me and which I overcome. And a friend of mine keeps telling me, Shivani, you should pray, not to a God, but just pray. And I said, if I started to pray to God, I would become weak because right now I've been given so many challenges, and I take them as challenges from God, which I have to overcome. And if I started, depending on God or praying to Him, then I feel I would become weak.
And there's a theory, I'll just want to share something here. It is not like we say that I am being given the challenge. It's just that between the time of our last birth and our present birth, we are the ones who are choosing that I'll be an example to the whole world. That's what we are. So that's what you chose. So,
Yeah, I believe in that. That whatever challenges I face and whatever life I lead is my choice. It's
yes.
something that I decided.
And you're
So
becoming an
this is
example to people, everybody out there.
yeah. I don't know, but yeah, life is beautiful. It's really worth living and challenging everything. And
So
you
we have a
have to
question
make
from
it beautiful.
Mohan sir right here. He's in a presenter only. So you have achieved more than the people with abilities could have. Is there anything that you regret not having been able to achieve?
I used to love to dance. I used to love at IHM. We had this, I don't know, in the girls' hostel, we had this meeting room which was most unutilized, but it had a music system. Each evening, I used to put on music and dance for 1 hour just alone. I used to love dancing, and that is something what I miss. I really miss that.
Anybody else has any comments or question they would love to ask, ma'am? Ma'am, so I guess on this note, we will bring this session to close. Thank you so much
Yeah.
for being here, ma'am. You are actually an inspiration to all of us. Dean, ma'am, you want to add something here, or should we just go to the closing directly?
I think I just want to thank Shivani. Thank you so much for coming and spending your moments of your life with us. I really wanted people to know what I knew. I really wanted people to get inspired by you, to get to know you. I share your stories with a lot of people. But I think so coming it from your end, it is so much more distinct. And this was really that I wanted. And you've done that, and thank you so much. And wishing you all the strength and Godspeed, Shivani. God bless you always.
Thank you, Garima. Thank you for inviting me for this session. I haven't done such a session before, so as I was saying, I'm very nervous. But thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you, guests, for joining us. We will be signing off now. We'll be stopping the broadcast. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for coming.